Tomorrow is my 20th birthday, which would be today if this video actually gets made and released. But I'm just sort of reflecting. I have been for a while. A few weeks ago, I ran into one of my closest friends on my way home from work, and I hadn't even realized he was in town. None of my close friends really are in town. Well, they don't live in town, but they're either off at different colleges or we didn't ever live in the same place to begin with. But we ended up going somewhere and just talking for a bit. And his introspection at the time was sort of contagious. It was the day before he turned 20, and that made me think about my own journey to this point. I've made a lot of mistakes. Most of the time, not life-altering, drastic mistakes. I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but I'm human. I don't have a list of grand achievements to my name, and I haven't been the best friend, son, sibling, or significant other at times. But in this conversation with Henry, I started realizing for the first time that at this point in my life, I'm really everything I've ever wanted to be. I've never really had all that much direction for my future. Pick a year from my childhood and he'd tell you that I wanted to be an architect or a Lego architect, or that I simply didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. But I knew what I liked, and despite not knowing where those things would take me, I knew I wanted to keep liking those things. I was fueled by Spider-Man and video games and not much else. Well, maybe music. I both fueled by a hate and a love for certain music. I used to sit in the back seat of my mom's car while we waited for my older sister to come out of school, and she'd be listening to her country music, and I despised it. And I don't despise it now, but it's not my favorite. but now I listen to some pretty dope ass music. I think young me would have been pretty happy that I've found all of the things that I liked from elements that I liked, like listening to music. My dad's car is the rock music that he'd play. And then even stuff that my sister would listen to, and I'd pretend like I hated all the musicals and the pop and everything, but I'm a nuanced person, you know. I enjoy things. And it's not just like I enjoy so many different things, and I think that's really nice. If I could see myself, if a young me could see myself and take a look at what I do now, he would be so happy. And I'm not sure what to do with that. And I guess the answer is set more goals, continue trying to be more. But I'm proud of myself. I'm happy to be who I am today. I'm not exactly fueled by the exact same things that I was as a small child, but like, I didn't just like Spider-Man because he was a superhero. Like, there was more to, well, maybe not at the time there wasn't more to it, but now there certainly is. And I wouldn't call Spider-Man my favorite superhero. I'd call Daredevil my favorite superhero probably, but that's because of like the ideas that they interact with and the things that I've been able to consume of these characters and how much that they've impacted me, you know? And that's not all that special, but it doesn't have to be. But I've had the chance to shape who I am around my understanding of like different ideas and concepts because of what's functionally like a folklore story, you know? The Spider-Man mythos isn't really like, it's a comic book, of course, but it's been adapted into so many different things and it lacks so much cohesion because it's in so many different things that it's basically a word of mouth tale at this point. And damn, the savior complex of it all, like the idea of great power coming with great responsibility is like something that was like drove into my school as a kid. And those ideas they shaped who I am. For worse, I'd say, because a kid doesn't need a savior complex like Spider-Man. But then, maturing takes place. And I think that's where my affinity for Daredevil comes from, because he has a lot more of a nuanced take on the whole responsibility thing, widely due to his religious background, which I relate to because I have an interesting religious background, being raised in a very Christian household, but that's not me anymore. Yet I don't think that, despite being raised in it, I don't think a young me would see that and say that it's a bad thing that I'm not that anymore. I think I'd be able to recognize the goodness in myself if I took a look at nearly 20-year-old me when I was like 10, maybe. Not that I was that cognizant, but I don't know. I think it's really cool that these things that I wasn't very cognizant of, like video games, just, I'm thinking me 7, 8 years ago when I started playing Fortnite would be so happy that I still play it and I'm still half decent at it. Of course, this was only after like disliking the game for a period of time, but then they introduced something else and I got to continue engaging with it, and I'd still play it, and I have friends that play it with me, which a young me would be enthralled to hear, because it was so hard to get people online because I felt so disconnected from people at school because I lived far away. But and of course, Fortnite isn't the only game that's been impactful for me. I'm sitting here in front of my desk and I've got 3 full shelves full of games. I started collecting them, and a young me this would be like going to Disneyland, seeing all the GameCube games and all the games that I like never even dreamed of having come out. And even like games that I own in multiple different ways. Like, who needs 7 copies of Minecraft? Nobody. But I have 7 copies of Minecraft, and 10-year-old me would have thought that was fucking dope. 'Cause it is. I've even beyond just material possessions and the simple things that I was fueled by at the age, like, I have some of the greatest friends that I have ever like heard of people having, like Henry. He's such an inspiration for me. Every time that he posts something online, even if it's like a stupid video of him completing something in Destiny. I don't completely understand Destiny. I don't play the game, but his effort in doing so and just documenting the achievement that's dope. I want to do that. I should do that. I'm planning on starting on doing that, but I guess we'll see how that goes. And my friends are so creative. Gage is so creative. And he does so many different things, but there's so many. The music he makes, the things he writes, and they inspire me. Both of them. Ben too. Ben writes a shit ton. But each of them, like, I saw Henry just a couple weeks ago and we got to talking, and Ben and Gage, I feel like we talk like that every other week. I couldn't really ask for more. And it doesn't hurt that I have a beautiful girlfriend that is so supportive of me as well. And I'm going to school. That would have been expected of me from a younger self, but I didn't ever really know what I wanted to do. I knew what I should say I wanted to do because I knew that my parents wanted me to go to a school, or to go to one specific school, but that's not the important takeaway from that. But I'm going to school because I want to teach, because I've always loved learning. And that's like the very basis of who I am. And learning is like that's the most important thing to me. That's why I'm going to school, because I want to learn. And I'm going to school to become a teacher, because I want to help others learn. And, you know, despite all of the awful shit happening around me in this shithole of a country we live in at times, I'm proud of myself for being who I am and doing what I do, and being able to, like I said, I guess the next step is to set new goals and continue moving forward. But I think being where I am doesn't mean this is the end point. Being where I am means where I am is continually improving at everything that I want to be. And that means learning more. That means buying and playing more video games. That means continuing to enjoy the company of my best friends that I've ever had. And I think that's brilliant. That's a corny ass thing to say, but I'm turning 20 and I'm being sappy about it, so I get to be corny this time around. Now, shout out Henry for encouraging me to, not encouraging me, he didn't encourage me at all, but he set an example, and I fuck with him heavy. This isn't just a copycat channel though.